Yeah, just get.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're officially live pre-recording after Milan just lost to Spezia 2-0. I'm Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo alongside me as always. Matt, just basically more of the same without Rafael Leao with this squad. This really wasn't surprising. We know Benacer injured, not able to play. Malek Chow, if you even wanted to count him, he was suspended. Really torturous final few weeks of the season for Milan, especially after that 2-0 defeat against Inter midweek in the semifinal. This is not looking good. This was very unsurprising about the offensive side of things and lacking goals and creation, but just the overall vibe that you got from this one was just generally lifeless. It was also just defensive mishaps, giveaways of possessions. If Mike Magnan is looking human on a set piece taken, that's all you need to know. And again, another 2 set pieces are where the goals are stemming from here. So 3 of the last 4 goals that Milan have allowed have come from that, and the other was a broken down defensive play. This couldn't be a worse end to the season for Milan. Basically, the hope to get back into the Champions League next season is a miracle win off of Inter in the Champions League, and then to get to the final and win it, or they need a lot of help within Serie A. Just so many points left on the table this season. We talked about it. I mean, this isn't surprising, right? This is all Milan's fault, and there's no one else to blame.
100%. There's I think you tweeted it too, top to bottom, a lot of people at fault for how this season has gone. You talk about the lack of investment. A lot of blame has to go to Jerry Cardinal and the ownership group who, we kind of gave a pass in the summer because there wasn't still the technical full completion of that acquisition, right? But where was the acquisition in January? It was pretty evident that Milan needed some sort of life injected into this team, whether it be another additional attacking outlet, someone to help alleviate some of the pressure already on Rafael Leao's shoulders, which it's pretty obvious now that he is the most valuable player to any club in Serie A that is competing for anything. I mean, if you take him out of this team, we're easily a mid-table team on most, with the occasional spike week against some pretty decent sides. But we don't create anything when he's not on the field. When you put the reserves in, we're a relegation side. The way we play with these players, it's pretty obvious, and you see today, right? And you see the record we've had in the past couple months against some of these more provincial sides. Over the season, 2 draws to Cremonese, a team that's I think 19th. Sampdoria, Lord knows what we're going to do against them. They're already guaranteed for the drop, I think, but they might even get something from us. And here we are against Spezia, who's fighting for their life, and all credit to Spezia. They absolutely needed a result today, and they got it at home, 2-0, clean sheeting Milan, getting goals where they need it. All credit to them. You can't just say it was all down to Milan playing poorly, which it was, but at the same time, Spezia did what they had to do, right? They capitalized on Milan's flaws, which, to your point, via set pieces, we're dreadful. We can't contain anybody, even with guys like Tomori, Kalulu, guys who were really great last year at this point. They're not doing anything. There really isn't much more else to add on to that. The coaching situation, let's talk about that, right? Because Stefano Pioli, had a great year last year. We're in a semifinal of the Champions League, but a lot has to be said about his rotation choices in some of these games the past 2 months. People saying that these are winnable matches, and the writing was on the wall. Anyone who has watched this team over the past year knows that these games aren't winnable. They play up to teams like a Napoli or Roma or Lazio like they did last weekend. Perfect example. Leao goes down. They somehow find a way to win 2-0 against a team that might make the Champions League. What do they do to follow it up? They have an absolute stinker on the weekend away to Spezia, who I believe hasn't won a game in 16 or 17 matches. Like, I think that's a stat, that actual stat. You could fact check me on that, whoever's in the comments. But the point I'm trying to make is this is a relegation team.
Yeah.
And look at what we're putting out there as far as the performance is concerned. Zero urgency. Players that we've been kind of shouting to get minutes. CDK 30-something minutes. I'm starting to lean into that category. We're like, you know what? If you get a pretty substantial offer that's close, I think you let him go, because another season of this, where's the value? How do you sell him? How do you recoup anything? Really?
It's just again, it's
Not,
just
it's not Martino. It's not specifically down to him because I think the way we've handled Adley, the way we handled
of
CDK,
course, yeah.
some of the other players hasn't been good. But if you're not going to fix the problem and at least try to put the guy in positions or some of these other players in
And then they're not. He's literally isolated every single match on the right side, and it's kind of like, what are his direction? I genuinely don't even understand what they want to do with him. They
no,
don't like it. It tactically, it makes zero sense. Like there's there's two separate things that people need to understand when you're actually objectively trying to evaluate a player. Okay, what does CDK control? CDK does not control the amount of time that Pioli gives him and the players that he gets put on the pitch with. We see what happens in the match against Lecce where they refuse to even pass him the ball. Is that on CDK? Yes or no? Absolutely not. But when we see today in this match, when he gets the ball, even Bonetti was talking about it on the broadcast, he gets the ball. It was a giveaway. They almost scored after that. He controls that. He controls his strength and where he receives the ball and what to do with the ball. That is on him. That has nothing to do with the manager and all that other stuff. However, I still don't think it's wise to continue to put a player in these rough, weird situations. Also, like the rest of the attack sucked all day. We will
yeah,
also admit that. So, like, if we're going to keep that energy towards CDK, why is it also not directed towards those players? And it has been, but to the level that we're going with. So, like, how is a player like him at his age, who's low on confidence, is supposed to thrive? Explain that to me. Because nobody can, because they know that's not a good situation for him to develop in. At least with Rafael Leao, they completely overhauled and changed everything. It was growing pains. It was a different situation with Milan. This one, it's like, we need you to make an impact, but it's like there was zero development the entire season. There was nothing to build off of. And what we saw in those first couple months was a totally different player, in my opinion, than what you see now. And even then, if you watched anything from Bruges, and the same applies to Adley with Bordeaux, they were creative, good players within their teams. They come over here and nothing is happening. That just doesn't magically happen to multiple players. I'm sorry. Someone's accountable. And the one thing that changed is the manager. I understand leagues are different, but like, I don't even think he understands how to best utilize some of these players. Seriously. And then the midfield again today. What is Tonali supposed to do with those players around him? Centrally, it's awful. I think it's really bad. The midfield situation is just as bad as the attack. After you look past Benacer, Tonali, Krunic is okay for what he is and what he should be. That's a fourth or fifth midfielder at best, right? You can't have him as your third. You need a higher quality midfielder in those terms. And now the ultimate question that comes out now is, if Milan miss top four, Matt, which is certainly possible. I don't think they're going to be playing Champions League football next season, barring miracles. What level of investment is going to come? And what limited money do you have at that point? Because it's not going to be as much as you would have hoped with Champions League qualification. So now you're kind of like, all right, we'll have a limited budget. Say we toss out a number 50 to 60 million. Where does that have to go towards? Because you have at least need to get two starters. You have to. There's no denying that. So now you're in this situation of, is it wiser to get another midfielder, or we relaunch CDK as a false nine, or do we have to go and get this striker that could be of a Jonathan David level? Like, there's something that needs to be done, and it needs to get a quality player in here, because I don't want to see another project. You don't want to see another project. Maldini is even saying it on Paramount Plus in interviews. The time to invest is now.
In English, yeah, and it's
Both
very,
languages. You did them both, yeah.
yeah, it's very clear, and I think that's that's the really certainty of this club right now, because we've already not have seen much of investment, or the appropriate amount of investment to get this team to be off the back of a Scudetto, right? You had back-to-back Champions League qualifications. You win a league title. You're in a Champions League semifinal right now. The natural next step is, okay, how do we build a team that year in and year out is legitimate, a top four team that can also compete for a title? Now we're a team that is a fringe top four team after just 1 year from winning the title. And we know how these things can go. They can quickly spiral out of control to the point where just 1 year of not making Champions League, and all of a sudden one guy leaves, one guy gets sold, And now you're having to shake up the project. You're getting a new coach in there, maybe a new director or two. The scouting team could look different. So there's a lot resting on this beyond just the financial aspect. Now you're in a position where the hard work, the grunt work that was done to build this team to get to
Yeah.
becoming a title winner last year could completely evaporate in a matter of months, about a year since we won a title. And that's very concerning to me. And I think, when you look at the players in this team, there has to be a lot of reflection, because you look at certain guys, and we're looking at this team saying, yeah, we could potentially repeat with the right amount of investment. We didn't invest the way we needed to. It's obvious. We spent 75% of our budget on one player who hasn't been handled the right way. Yes, he also hasn't done his part. He hasn't lived up to expectations. But the players you brought in, Florenzi, nowhere to be found, injury prone, coming off an injury. Junior Macias, not he's an easy backup to Alexis Salamakers, and he's a veteran player that has no resale value. You lost your midfield depth with the lack of replacing of Kessie, right? So you had Tonali, Benacer, and Kessie as your main three. If you want to slot in Krunic as your fourth midfielder, I can deal with that. Or Pobega
Yeah.
as your fifth, I could deal with that. But you're absolutely bang on when you talk about the midfield depth. Like, it's unheard of and unparalleled to have seen a team that did so well last year, that has made such good strides over the past couple of years to get into the top four and to reap the benefits of
Yeah.
that when it comes to the attraction on the market. So what did we do? Did we bolster the midfield, get another winger? Did we get a true player up front that can make the difference? We didn't. We didn't do any of these things.
No.
And that's really just the more frustrating part of it. And someone has to be taking the brunt of that. Someone has to go if they don't get top four. You can't just sit here and miss out on top four and then stay as is. Someone has to be the fall man. Someone has to get axed to send a message, because you can't possibly not get top four and then go into next season with Pioli as your coach. And now you're in a position where you were a couple seasons ago, where if it starts poorly 8, 9, 10 games in, like it did with Gianpaolo, now you're having to make an in-season switch to a coach and try to piece it all together.
Yeah. Listen, I think a lot of people are getting really dire with it, and I get it. And I'm not saying you're wrong with anything. I don't fully agree with everything, to be honest with you. I do think you're right
Okay?
in saying, like, when you replace a lot of those things, that's gonna happen. Like, my cousin's freaking out. I know, like, other people are saying now these guys are gonna want to leave. They're gonna sell this player, and it's like all over, and we're nothing, and it's gonna be like a couple of years ago when we missed the Champions League and we have to sell players and we can't retain. We're extending everybody. We made a Champions League semifinal. Calm down. Okay. We're closer into the green than we've ever been. And if we were, it was at least 20 years ago. So financially, they're healthier than what they want. It's a footballing issue right now. This is strictly on the pitch, where
But Martino, what's the point of being in a financially healthy position if you can't reap the benefits of all the hard work you've done financially?
I'm not saying don't invest. I don't. How many times do I have to ask? Like, can we please do something? They gave him nothing in January. He asked for it. Would have wanted Nicolo Zaniolo for the amount of money that Roma was asking for? No. But do I think you should have gotten Sportiello in there? Yes. I don't understand how that wasn't a thing. They went to go get a Paraguayan goalkeeper who did absolutely nothing, and he's just going to be a footnote and a trivia question for the future. For me, this is just ultimately something that needs to be fixed, because if they get a striker in here, they get players who can finish their chances. Milan's easily in the top four, and it's not even a question. And I think you could fix that. Ultimately, it's just because you missed top four, what is your budget? Is it a lot less than you would have imagined? They got all these renewals done. There's been positives on the sporting front of things. It's just been a really poor year of developing these players that you signed. And again, even the transfer window had a lot of loans with options or minimal purchases. The
Yep.
only really big one was a CDK. Everyone else was on a free. It was a loan. But like, Chow's not even going to cost you 10 million euro. They really didn't spend that much, and they made it all the way to a UCL final. They essentially reinvested the money that got them in with qualification for this year's Champions League, and then on top of it, this Scudetto winning prize, which in all reality in Serie A isn't too much. Um, I'm not on the side of panic. The sky is falling. I don't believe in that. But
I'm
I
not
do
saying
think
I
no,
think
of
these
course. I know. But I'm saying
questions,
a lot of people were.
someone's got to be a fall man. There's got to be some sort of breakdown of this project as is if you don't get top four. Not the full breakdown, not selling players. I don't believe in that. And I agree with you that we extended a lot of the key players, but
Yeah.
I know that that's not always as simple as, well, we extended them, they're good to go. Well, if the
Yeah.
players they're going to look around and say, man, like, do I really want to waste my prime years here? Like, can I go somewhere else? And like, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you know the sport well enough, like I do. That's the nature of and landscape of the transfer market and of the sport.
Well, these players knew what they were getting into when they signed these contract extensions. They joined here when there wasn't any Champions League football. It was a bizarre season. Rarely ever does a champion have to change ownership, and that ownership takeover takes the entire summer. The entire. I'm not defending any ownership here. I'm just saying, like, are we gonna blame the director or the players at that point? Like, we want to get on Maldini for not doing the Enzo deal when there was the Renato Sanchez being held up on the line. They were clearly interested in a midfielder to add to this team that would have been of quality. Do I give them management deserves blame for that? They
Yeah.
did they did a poor job without being aggressive at the right moments. They've done some really good things. I think a lot of people are hating on them for poor deals. I could show you Beppe Marotta's poor deals. I could show you Giuntoli's bad deals. There's a lot of directors out there that have done a lot of bad business. I'm
Lozano,
just Lozano, Manolas. Even look at our good friend Daniel Russo's tweet this morning about like how Giuntoli had a ton of bad deals. Verdi, another one when they got him from Torino, they paid 17 million euro for Andrea Petagna. Like they're, by the way, that's as much as we paid for like Benacer. All right, so to put into perspective on things. All I'm saying is we need investment. Milan needs the investment. I'm sorry. It's just true. You need proven stars, and that's who I want Milan to target. Will they end up doing that? My guess is no. If you read the words that Jerry Cardinal had, Jerry, you have to. Wording is everything. These guys are not stupid. They run multi-billion-dollar hedge funds. They run multi-billion-dollar clubs. They're not idiots. Okay, so when they're telling you something, there is truth to what they are saying. And Jerry's words were along the line of, we need to know what happens with top four. And if there's no top four, I'm inclined to believe there is not going to be as much money invested into the team as there would be if they were to have made it. And that's perfectly normal and it makes sense because why they don't want to take the risk to spend more money than they're making. And that's what's going to happen if they miss top four. And it's going to happen because as of right now, the teams that are just playing with these schedules, it's just they need luck from Juve, Matt. They need a Juve points deduction to pull this off. Juve aren't dropping the points. Juve are a stout defensive team at this
Yep.
point. They're not dropping it, and we have to go into Torino and beat them. Are Milan going to do that? I don't think so. Lazio just dropped points. What do we do? Nothing. We lose. They gained a point, not Milan. It's embarrassing. It's pathetic. I don't care who's injured. Players were in prep for this. Players were not performing. Someone has to take a fall for this. And again, the funny part is there's still 3 matches left. No, man, I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
I'm being a realist here. You know, we've been doing this for how many years? Like we've seen
7.
it, man. We've seen the false hope. We've seen they lure you in with some pretty good results. And you think last week, them beating Lazio the way they did, hey, we got a big boost. Leao goes down. Everyone thinks it's doom and gloom. Oh, he goes down before the Inter game. We found a way to rally and get to a 2-0 result at home against Lazio, against a team that we're trying to unseat for a top 4 spot. What do? We played like the way we played in the Champions League, and then we follow up with an absolute stinker here. I mean,
Absolute stinker.
it's the urgency, man. The lack of urgency on this team is so profound. It's so obvious, and there's no one to look to in this team. There's no specific area in this team that we can say, hey, you know what? We're not scoring goals the way we need to, but man, our midfield and our defense are stout. Or hey, you know what?
Yeah.
We're not playing great defensively, but man, we're pouring in goals. Like Atalanta, I know they lost today, but like they're a team that can let 2 goals in and they'll win 3-2 or 4.
At least they get the goals back. Yeah.
Right. Like we don't have any, like there's no component to our team that I can rest on and say, hey, you know what? Let's ride this. Because last year, Martino, and those who are going to be listening to this, we didn't bludgeon teams down the stretch last year. We were very strong defensively. We won some very tight games, some games
Mm-hmm.
with a really strong defensive effort, and we got goals where we needed them to get
Yep.
the points. We're not doing any of that. We're getting
None of
clean
it.
away to Spezia. I don't care what guys you have back in it. You have a Rebic who has scored goals in this league before. He looks like he's
Awful.
Origi. I even said it, and I know CDK didn't play well. I know Adley did some things in this match that were like, okay. I can't blame him. He barely plays. It's difficult to gel with this team when you don't play
Yeah.
at all.
And that moment to get into the match at that moment.
And to come in and play with the reserve team, not even the best players. He's not coming in there and playing with Tonali and Benacer and Leao.
Again, yeah. Very similar to what happens to CDK sometimes, yeah.
Right? So when you look at all these things, it's not going to go down to this. It's going to go down to the management of the fixtures, the schedule, right? And we had the luxury of that last year, where we were bounced in the group stage, and the cup games. Obviously, they're like very few and far between. You're not playing those every week, right? We know that. So we were able to put all eggs in one basket. But when you and I know, and everyone knows listening to this, if you're going to put all your eggs into one basket and you're going to say, man, we're in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, man, we're in the semifinals of the Champions League, and you're really going to take a concerted effort to push on and try to get that, you better be damn sure that you get and push every button right when it comes to rotation, the players you put in, and the fact that the management didn't have the proper depth for Pioli to carry out that is astounding to me. Is astounding. We knew from the jump this team wasn't equipped to make a deep run in the Champions League anyway. We were just hoping to get out of the group.
It was fortunate. Yeah, we said round of 16. Yeah.
And Martina, this is my last point on this.
Mm-hmm.
Aldini makes a good point that I think puts a lot of things into perspective when he had that interview with CBS for the Inter game. He pretty much said, like, we didn't expect to be here. Like, we're ahead of schedule in this sense. Milan being back in a semifinal after all those years being out of it. The year before, they only clinched Champions League. Now they're in a semifinal of the Champions League.
Yeah.
With on the same platform as a City and a Madrid.
Yeah.
As far as quality is concerned, they're not there. But at the same stage as a City, no one expected them to be there. But I think it's again, it's a culmination of things wrong with this team, with this club, with this project, where it was half-assed coming into the season, and I think it took a lot of people a little bit longer to see that. People had a lot of false hope. We could repeat Napoli ain't this, Juventus ain't that, Inter can't do anything, they're in financial ruin. Look what you're seeing. Like, you're seeing how quickly things can go absolutely south. And this is my final thing. We were 5 points off Napoli to start the year.
Yeah.
And Napoli lost their first game of the season at home to Inter. We completely capitulated in 2023, and that's
since blowing the 2-0 lead to Roma, it was all downhill. Everyone knew it within that moment. It was very uncharacteristic. They played well against Salernitana, got that win. Then it, like you said, it capitulated. It just was just a snowball effect of just losing.
The
Lazio, I mean, it was the first ever time Milan was scored on 4 more goals in Serie A in consecutive matches in a very long time. Do you understand that? I know the standard was so high. We had the greatest defenses of all time, the greatest teams of all time. We saw even worse Milan sides that didn't do what they just did. Okay? I'd even go so much to say as like that Bonucci Romagnoli defense wasn't doing this in the second half of the season. And like, to me, at the end of the day with this, it is blame towards everybody. I think there should be some changes. I think if you miss top, I said I'm okay with keeping Pioli if he makes top 4, whatever, you fall short of some goals. I'll just say Coppa Italia was a failure. Serie A was an absolute massive failure. The Champions League was a great surprise. But it leaves a sour taste in your mouth because you couldn't achieve the other goals that you set out. So essentially, the semifinal is just going to turn out to be only good fiscally for Milan. Morale-wise, you lose to your rivals. It's the first time you ever lost to an Italian team in the Champions League with the 2-0 loss. Milan have to be perfect for 4 games. They have to be perfect. And it starts Tuesday. We'll wrap it up here. On a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to Leicester City or Greece 2004, what is your belief in Milan turning this around? 2-0 isn't insurmountable. Okay? It's not insurmountable, but no Benacer. Leao is going to be back for that. Milan got to get one within the first 20 for that to happen. My confidence level is on a 3, but we've seen crazier things happen in football, and it's happened to our own club in that competition. So
it's a 3, and I think that the thing that really puts it at that number for me is that it always takes an absolute like kick in the teeth for this team to have a reaction versus being the dominant side in a match.
Yep.
They always need to be like absolutely battered for them to wake up, and then they do something. How many times have we seen we're like, man, like Milan, there's no way they're going to get absolutely destroyed by Napoli, and then 3 matches they outplay them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's week to week. It's impossible at this point to pin down what type of performance we're going to get from Pioli and from the players.
And then you see them with the Curva Sud. I don't know if you saw that.
Much confidence that this team can overturn it. The only confidence I have is that the fact that we have our MVP player back, and that says a lot about what we think and I think of Leao and the impact he can have on this team and how much he can change the game on his own. Having said all that, there's no urgency in this team. There's no urgency in this team. You would think the way they were playing against the game like this, against Spezia, that they were the team that won a title like Napoli, and they're like, we don't need this game anyway. This is just third game. Who cares? They played like a team that had already confirmed top 4. Like, we don't need this game.
They could be so far ahead in top 4 with the fixtures that they blew. It's insane. We went through it last time. with the Leao statistic about how they won 1 of the 7 matches in which he did not start. And the only good team that they played was Inter. Every other team was bottom to mid-table, and they couldn't even score. There's a scoring issue. The striker is a must. They have to get a striker because they create enough chances. They can't finish them. That's the issue with Milan, on top of a couple of other things. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please follow Matt on Twitter at Matt_Santangelo. It's been on the bottom with the ticker. Please sub to the YouTube channel. These are where these videos will get uploaded and some of these clips. We will do something with Rafael Leao very soon. Once that officially gets announced, it's a very big thing for Milan to have. We'll see what happens. There's 4 matches left. Milan need to be perfect. I am very low on confidence with this side, but I'm going to keep rooting for them. I'm going to keep trying to believe. I've seen this team blow a 3-0 lead in a Champions League final with the best team of my life. So it just, maybe things turn around, but this is a bottom of the barrel moment as a Milanista after just a year ago of celebrating a Scudetto. Anything else, Matt, that we might have missed?
No. Well, you're right. I think we got to be perfect over the next 4 games. Inch perfect. Defensively, in net, in the midfield. Like, someone has to step up. It can't be Leao taking on 4 guys.
Tonali, you were not slandered, my brother. You were awesome today.
Players have to look in the mirror and understand the dire situation that they're in and how much they owe it to the fans after all the hard work that's been put in to getting to this point, that they owe it to the fans who travel in packs and droves and spend their hard-earned money to fill the rafters of the San Siro for Champions League games. If you can't do it for them, then don't show up at that point. If you're going to keep putting this effort in that we saw against Spezia today, don't show up.
Yep.
Bring the academy players that will play with a little bit of identity and heart, because I didn't see any of that from the group we had on today, including players, some of the players that we are the stars of this team. So
a lot of players that look like their job is safe, and that's a problem.
Yep.
Thanks again, guys. You can follow me at Martino Puccio pretty much everywhere. Obviously the YouTube channel. Appreciate it. Look out for the Rafael Leao video. Again, please like, comment, subscribe if you have not already. Let us know some of your thoughts. Let us know what you think Milan are going to do over the last 4 matches of the season. Thanks again.